Thank you all joining us today. It's so good to see you all, the parents and students here. I'm quite sure that today's panel discussion and advice from experts will be immensely helpful to you. I want to thank our keynote speaker, Mr. Jim Beach, and our panel experts, Ms. Ginger Fay, Dr. Maggie Ray, Dr. Joanne Max, Dr. Theodora Soblis, Mrs. Suchita Kamath, Mr. Derek Paul, Mr. Manish Sarda, and Mr. Stuart Kanzeri for taking the time to participate in this event. And most importantly, the rising college freshmen for sparing their half day of freedom with us to share their valuable experience of going through the college readiness process. Thank you. This event was started last year by Vibha as a community service. While Vibha's main goal is to raise awareness and funds for child development projects in USA and India, we also do a lot of local volunteering and help the local community. The purpose of organizing this event is to address one of the needs of the community. Last year's program, we had a panel discussion and a guest speaker. That was a huge success. Looking at the response and eagerness with which everyone participated and identifying the need for the information for so many people, we decided to expand this year with expert session and a separate student panel session. And we have scholarship experts and essay writing experts today. We also added parallel sessions. As I said, that will be, I will explain that later. So similarly, we wanted to address the concerns of parents, where we can raise questions freely and know how much to push and when to back off. So we have a parent session there. So we have packed schedule today. Are you ready for the schedule? Thank you. So without further delay, I would like to introduce today's guest speaker, Mr. Jim Beach. Jim Beach is an entrepreneur, keynote speaker, award-winning radio host of School for Startups. Mr. Jim Beach's first book, School for Startups, was published by McGraw-Hill in June 2011. Jim taught entrepreneurship at Georgia State University for 9 years and ranked #1 in the business school for 12 straight semesters. In 2010, he founded School for Startups, which has taught over 7,000 people to be low-risk entrepreneurs. He has been featured in UPS commercial. We have a celebrity here. Wow. CNN called him Simon Cowell of small business. And corporations like Wells Fargo, Toshiba, UPS, and SunTrust have hired him as a speaker and consultant. His radio show is nationally syndicated. He is a mentor for Thai young entrepreneurs in Atlanta. And he is a regular speaker at IIT Mumbai, India. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Beach.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to spend a few minutes with you. I want to let you know that what I'm going to talk about today is my opinion. You're not going to agree with some of the things I have to say. And you parents in particular might disagree with what I have to say a lot. Okay? That's okay. And I'm going to take questions at the end, and I'll be around some in the afternoon. You can come up to me. I'd love to talk to all of you and love to get to know you and help you in any way that I can. All right? Slide. So here on the first 3 slides, I just have some random things that I was thinking about. When they asked me to talk about, are you ready to go to college? I tried to make a list of some of the things that I had to be able to do in college that I wasn't prepared to do. So parents, have you prepared your children for things like how to do their own laundry, right? Why do you use fabric softener, kids? Why? Have you ever worn underwear that wasn't washed without a fabric softener? I guess none of you have, huh? All of these things are life skills that you need to have before we cast you out on your own. There's nothing scarier than getting that first power bill. Do you go, like when you're in your house and you're sitting there and your father comes and turns the light off? Do you have your father who does that? And you're like, why did he do that? Wait till you get your first power bill and it's $310. And you're like, oh, power, $300, and your first cable bill for $150. These are the sort of life lessons that we don't prepare you for very well as parents. I want to let you know I'm a parent of 4 children. I have one son off in college now, so all of these things are things that he's learning. He sent me a picture the other day of breakfast that he had made for himself. He was so proud of it. It looked like something you would get at McDonald's or something. It was not very good looking, but he was proud of what he's done. I have some of these things in red here that I want to really point out to you as skills that you're definitely going to need, things that I hope that you will focus on as you get ready to go off to college. Are you good at making small talk with people that you have nothing in common with? Have you ever thought about that? That's one of the most important skills you're going to need to have. I can talk engineering with you, but what about you? If you want to talk about plays, if you're a theater major and a really cute girl and I want to get to know you, and all I have to talk to you about is engineering and all you want to talk about is theater, but I really want to go out on a date with you, it's not going to work, boys, right? So these are some of the things I want you to worry about. Slide, please. Another thing I want to talk about today is that going off to college is a chance to make a new you, a chance to have a whole new personality, to be a whole different person. And I'm going to talk a lot about this today. There's nothing scarier than going off to college and realizing that you don't like yourself. I'm going to talk a lot about my journey, the things that I did when I was in college, but let me start off with this. When I went to college, I 100% did not like myself. I was not happy with me, and I had almost no friends. Do you want to be friends with someone that doesn't like themselves? Does that sound like someone you want to get to know? No, it doesn't. Are you going to be successful at school or in life or anything else if you don't like yourself? No. So when I went off to college, I realized I had one most important thing to learn. I didn't need to learn academics. I didn't need to learn about calculus. I didn't need to learn economics or engineering or computer science. What I needed to learn was to be a happy person in life. And that was my most single valuable thing that I could do for myself in the next 4 years, was learn how to like me and have a good time being me. And so I want to point out this red point here. Do you have a plan for what you want to get out of college? Does that relate to the other people from the same high school where you went to? I went to a college and my number one criteria was what? I wanted to go to a college where no one else from my high school was going. Why? Because I wanted to be a new person. I didn't want to be me. I didn't want them to be able to tell all of the other college freshmen what a loser I was. That scared. That was my number one fear. So I went to school in northern Vermont, 1,200 miles from here. I got as far away from Georgia as I could go. And then when I went to graduate school, guess where I went to graduate school? In Hawaii. Again, trying to get as far away from you Atlanta people as I possibly could. And the worst thing happened to me when I went off to college. Guess what happened? 2 people from my high school went there also. And I was like, oh no. They're going to tell everyone what a jerk I am. They're going to tell everyone that I'm just a big loser. This is horrible. This is the worst thing that could happen. And it turned out, of course, both of them became friends of mine, and we had a wonderful relationship. And I'm going to talk a lot about that today. So my question is, do you have a plan for where you want to be when you get out of college? It could be as simple as, I just want to be happy. That's all I want. Slide, please. And parents, you need to have a clear understanding of what the rules are going to be with your children. Do you expect them to call every Thursday night? Do you expect them to call every day? Are you going to wait for them to call, or are you going to call them? Right? These are all things that you need to think about. The worst thing that can happen is your child only calls when they want what? Money, of course, right? That's the relationship I had with my parents. I only called when I wanted money. And now with my own children, I have a son who is in college in North Carolina. We only talk when both of us are free. He'll call and say, are you free? I'll go, no, and he'll hang up, and I'll call back 10 minutes later and say, I'm free, and then we'll talk for 2 or 3 hours. But we only talk once every couple of weeks. Is that okay? It works great for us. So think about these sort of things, parents. The worst thing to be is a helicopter parent for a college student. Do you all know what a helicopter parent is? Does everyone understand that term? A parent who's always right there watching the kid, right? That kid never grows up, right? You want your kid to learn to burn food by themselves. You want your child to learn how to take a shirt that's a very nice shirt and shrink the daylights out of it and dye it pink because they put it in the wrong temperature of water, right? Those are lessons you're supposed to learn in college. All right, slide. So, as I said, I'm going to share with you some of the things that I believe about college and about the path that is important for kids when they go off to college. And parents, you're not going to like all of this. You're not going to agree with it, slide. But this is only my opinion, and so I could be wrong. I may be a really bad parent and a really bad advisor. We'll wait and see. But I'll let you know this. I've been involved in college-age kids and in high school kids my entire life. My first career sort of out of college was I started a summer camp business. And what did I do? I taught kids. And after that, I became a college professor. I've been a college professor all over the country. I've taught at MIT. I've taught at Stanford. I teach at IIT Mumbai. And then for 9 years, I was a professor down at Georgia State. And so I've been involved in this world almost my entire life. And now I have kids going to college, and I have 3 more kids trying to get into college. And so this is something I've thought a lot about. Slide, please. So here's my first thing I want you all to know. Grades don't matter. Grades are almost irrelevant. Now let me say this. Let me tell you this. I was the worst student in my high school. I went to a high school here in Atlanta, a private school. Most of you have probably heard of it. I was number 100 out of 101 in my graduating class. I was the worst student there. But now, 30 years later, I'm probably one of the most successful. I'm probably one of the happiest, I think. I don't know. It's hard to judge who's happier than other people. But I've probably done a lot of things that they never thought that I would do. Certainly, if you were to go to my friends or colleagues or the people I went to high school with and say, is Jim Beach going to be blank? They would say, no way. That's ridiculous. There's no way he's going to be successful. There's no way he's going to do that. He's an idiot. He's not cool at all. There's no way he's going to be successful. So let me say this. Your high school grades matter only to the extent that you get into a good college. After that in life, your college grades never matter again. Never. You maybe want to go to medical school. But you know, medical school is not that competitive anymore. It used to be, but it's not anymore. There are medical schools that have empty seats right now. Maybe you want to go to law school and you think you need good grades in college to get into law school. That's not true either. I've been accepted to law school. I didn't go, but I got accepted. And let me tell you, in college, I was a solid B- student. B- all the way through college. I got some C's and I got some F's. All right? But I still turned out really, really successful, I think. Really happy. Right now, I am the judge. I'm one of several judges for the Atlanta Business Person of the Year. And so I sit there and people come in and we judge them and decide who deserves to be the Business Person of the Year. I've been doing that for 7 years now. I've interviewed 500 of the top business people in Atlanta. Never once do we ask about their grades. We don't care about that. We don't even care where they went to college. They went to Harvard, we don't care. They went to Southern Georgia, we don't care. That's totally irrelevant once you graduate. Totally irrelevant. When I started my first business, I started a business when I was 24 years old. By the time I was 30, I had grown it to 89 locations around the world with over 700 employees. So I interviewed 700 people that I hired. I interviewed 2 for every 1 that I hired. So I've interviewed 5,000 or 6,000 people probably. Never once did I ask anyone what their college grades were. Never once did I say, did you do well in college? Tell me about your grades in college. I have been interviewed for lots of different things, lots of different positions. Never once has anyone ever asked me what my college grades were. It is irrelevant. Now, I grant, if you want to go to medical school, or if you want to go to law school, that grades matter. A little bit, not much. Let me tell you what does matter. Slide, please. When I go through life, I have learned one thing, that it's not how well I did in college that matters, but who I know that makes a difference. Kids, when you're at school, parents, you won't like this. Kids, when you're at school, I would recommend that instead of studying, you go to the party on Thursday night. Thursday night party is better for your career than Thursday night studying. I chose Thursday in particular. Thursday is a big party night at colleges. That doesn't necessarily mean drinking. It means going out and talking to people and getting to know people really well, so that 5 years later you can call them up and say, hey, I need your help. I need to get a job. Can you help me? So the very, very first job I ever had after I graduated from college, in the spring of my senior year, all my friends were sending out hundreds and hundreds of resumes, trying to find someone who would hire them. And they kept getting rejections from all the big companies. And my parents would call and say, have you got a job yet? Have you got your resume together? And I would always say, yeah, I'm working on it. Don't worry about it. I'm working on it. What was I really doing? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so May 1st came around, and I was like, ooh, I do need to get a job. What am I going to do? I called one person. Said, hey, I need a job. Can you help me get a job? He's like, yeah, let me call you back. 30 minutes later, he said, can you be in Atlanta tomorrow morning for an interview? I was like, sure. I got in my car. I drove to Burlington, Vermont, got on an airplane in Burlington, Vermont, flew home to Atlanta, walked into my parents' house. My dad goes, what'd you do, get kicked out of college? I was like, no, I have a job interview tomorrow. And he was like, oh, pretty surprised I am. So the one man I called, I had a job when I was in high school. I was the host. Was I in high school? Yeah, around my high school years. I was the host at a Japanese restaurant. Do you know Nakado Japanese restaurant on Cheshire Bridge Road? Any of you ever been there? It's sort of downtown. I can't see anyone who is acknowledging that they've been there. Nakado was the first Japanese restaurant in Atlanta. It started in the 70s. It's been there for 40 years. I was the bartender and the host there before I was allowed to drink. And I called the owner of the Nakado Japanese restaurant and said, I need a job. And he said, can you be in Atlanta tomorrow morning? And the job I went into, I interviewed for this job. What do you think the first question they asked me was? Was it about my grades? No, they never asked me about my grades once. They could care less. They had never heard of where I went to college. They had never heard of my school. I didn't go to MIT. I didn't go to Stanford. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Princeton. I went to some place that no one has ever heard of. They didn't care. They didn't ask me about that. They said, have you been to Japan before? I was like, yeah, I've been to Japan. I like it a lot. They were like, great, we'd love to hire you. I was 21 years old, and you know what my job came with? An airplane. So whenever I wanted to fly around the South, I could fly around the South by myself. I'd walk into the airport. Which airport? Hartsfield International? No. PDK, the private airport. Get onto a private plane, and they would fly me anywhere in the South because that's what my job was. At 21 years old, I had an airplane at my disposal. And my job was working for the Japanese government, helping find American companies that could export to Japan. And whenever I wanted to take an American company to Japan, you know what I would do? I'd get on a plane and fly to Japan with my American friends and get them introduced all over to Japan. And when the Prime Minister of Japan came to Atlanta and wanted to go out drinking in bars, guess who he was assigned to go drinking with? Me. At 21 years old. Does that sound like the coolest job ever? It does. And how did I get that job? Because I knew someone. And I will say this, when I worked at his restaurant, I worked hard every day. I worked harder at my restaurant job than I did at my studies. And so I ended up getting what I think we could all agree is one of the coolest jobs you could ever hear of for a 21-year-old. How many of you parents, when you were 21, had an airplane? I don't see any hands going up. So when I decided to start my business when I was 24, I decided to start a business. What did I do to start that business? The business was summer camps. I told you this. I ran the world's largest summer camp company. We had 89 different summer camps that we ran all around the world, hundreds of employees, millions of dollars in business. We were a $20 million company by the age of 30. When I started that business, my first location was at MIT in Boston. And MIT said, we'd love to do this with you, but you need to get the signature of one guy. How did I get the signature of that one man? Because someone that I met at a party during college knew him and was able to give me the introduction. Connections have made more in my life than anything else. I don't care about your grades. I care about who you know. When I wanted to write a book and I wanted to find a publisher, have you ever heard the story? The guy who writes a book and he sends off 100 proposals and they get 99 rejections and finally the 100th company says yes? Have you heard that story? You know, Harry Potter was rejected by over 200 companies before someone decided to publish it. I sent out one proposal to McGraw-Hill, the most prestigious publishing company in the United States. One proposal, they said yes. Why? Because of who I know. Slide, please. Don't get in debt when you go to college. I know that so many of you are planning on taking out student loans. It will be the biggest mistake you ever make. It will mean you'll get married 10 years later. You'll get your first house 10 years later. I would rather you go to a Georgia college on the Hope Scholarship than go to MIT. You will be better off in life if you do not get that $150,000 in debt. It will be the biggest mistake you ever make. Please don't do this. Slide, please. Because Georgia's colleges are better than MIT. Did I get a good education at the place I went to in Vermont? I never went to class. I was a B- student. Did I get a good education? No. That was my choice. When I was a professor at Georgia State, I promise you that the students who worked hard at Georgia State here in Atlanta on a Hope Scholarship were getting a better education than I did at a university that cost $70,000 a year. Because those students were working hard and were trying to excel. You can get a better education at Georgia State if you care than if you go to Harvard and you don't care. Don't do the Harvard thing if you end up $70,000 in debt a year. Go to Georgia colleges, which are very good, and dedicate yourself to it. You have to stand up, put your hand up over your head, and say, I am going to be successful and I'm going to work hard throughout my entire life. Slide, please. When I grew up, I wanted one thing. The only thing I wanted with my career was to be the CEO of Coca-Cola. I had two jobs at Coca-Cola. I had an internship when I was there in high school, and I had an internship after my graduate school in Japan. How did I get those internships? Because of people I knew, right? When I worked for them in Japan, I saved them $1 billion over 10 years. The project I did as an intern after graduate school saved Coca-Cola $1 billion. They still would not hire me as a full-time employee. I was like, how much money do I have to save? If I saved $1.2 billion, would you hire me? No, no matter how much. They knew that I wasn't going to be a good Coca-Cola employee. And so at the age of 22, I discovered that I would not end up working for my dream job. Since then, listen to the number of not jobs, but careers I have had. I've been a university professor. I've been a radio show host. I've been a public speaker. I've been an author. I've run summer camps. I've been in the construction industry, pounding nails all day, dripping with sweat. Were any of those things I planned? My degree is in economics. I have never in my entire life had a job that used any of my economics. I took AP Calculus. I've never used it once. I took AP Chemistry and Biology, and I've never used it once. Everything I learned at a party, learning how to talk to people and make friends so that they would help me with my career later on. How did I get invited to teach at IIT Mumbai? About the most prestigious college in the world. Would you agree with that? Indian parents? Is there anywhere more prestigious than IIT Mumbai? I teach there every year. Why? Because of people I know, not because of how smart I am. You have no idea what you want to do with your life at this point. I am 49 years old and I still have no idea what I want to do when I grow up. I promise you. Slide, please. College is your opportunity to find out who you want to be in life. I decided to go to college to decide I wanted to learn to like myself and to teach myself that I could be successful. I have been successful in life because at some point I stood up and said, me, I am going to be the one that succeeds in life. I am going to be the one that is unique and special and interesting. I am going to be the one that does cool things. And I've done some of the coolest things you can imagine. Fly a UPS jet. Never once flown an airplane, but UPS put me in the pilot seat and said, fly this airplane. Cool stuff like that you don't get to do in everyday life. Because I stood up and said, I am going to be successful. I'm going to do what it takes. And you know what I've learned? I've learned that my grades don't matter. It comes down to how hard and how dedicated I am going to be. But here's the most important thing. I've decided I'm going to like myself, and I'm going to let the world tell me what cool opportunities. I never in the world thought I would be a radio host, because remember, I'm a shy, introverted dork who doesn't like themselves. But 30 years later, someone came up to me and said, we'd like you to be a radio host. Do you want to be a radio host? I was like, sure, that sounds like fun. Do I get to do it in T-shirts? They're like, yeah, you get to wear T-shirts and pajama pants. I was like, that's a job for me. Slide, please. Where you are now is not indicative of what will happen in your life. I was the last student in my graduating class, but I'm the one they invited here today. I was the last student in my graduating class, but I teach at IIT Mumbai. No one else from my class does. I was the last student in my graduating class, but when I was 30 years old, I sold a business worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. Your high school grades, your high school experience, how much you hate high school, how cool you are in high school because you're the cheerleader or the captain of the football team, do not have any impact on what's going to happen in your life. I believe very, very firmly that life starts when you're 23 and you get out of college and stand up and say, I am going to be the one that does cool things. What you're doing now will not determine anything. So don't worry about it. Enjoy life, have more fun, and go get to know more people. The more people you know, the better off you'll be. Slide, please. So I want you to pick one thing that you're going to dedicate yourself to. And it doesn't matter what it is. Like when you get into college, have you ever heard that thing that the kid who does the fencing, the sword fighting, he gets in really weird, great schools because they don't have anyone else who's a fencer, right? Or the kid who wins a national cello competition. Or the kid who wins a jello competition. Those people get into schools. But your average generic kid, a 4.0 valedictorian, who does a whole lot of extracurriculars, is not interesting to a college. What's interesting is someone who does something unique and different. I didn't learn that in high school. That's why I ended up going to Vermont. Right? I didn't do anything interesting and special. It took until I was 22 for me to stand up and be interesting and special. I want you to be interesting and special now. Slide, please. And I do want to suggest one thing that you can do starting next month right here in Atlanta. See these 5 kids. Shreya is here today. Her father helped organize this event. Shreya won the Global Business Plan competition for high school students. Global winner number 1. How cool does that look on your college application? That's really impressive. That's more impressive than being valedictorian. How many valedictorians apply to Duke? 218. How many global business plan winners from all of the kids in India, all of the kids in Europe, and all of the kids in the United States apply to Duke? 1. Who's going to get in? Shreya is. This is the Atlanta team for the TIE organization. The Youth Entrepreneur, which is part of TIE, T-I-E. The Indus Entrepreneur, which is Atlanta's Indian Chamber of Commerce for entrepreneurs and business people. First of all of you parents should be a part of TIE. And secondly, all of you parents should send your kids to TYE because it will give them a better education than their entire high school experience. Shreya, did you learn more at TIE than you did in high school? Promise? There you go. Do you have more fun at TIE or in high school? What did you do at TIE? Did you meet people or worry about your grades? People like who? All over the world. She now has friends all over the world who will help the rest of her career. Slide, please. My name is Jim Beach. I hope you all buy my book. It's about entrepreneurship. It talks about the businesses that I have started. I hope you connect with me. You can go to jimbeach.com. There's my email address. There's Twitter. I don't ever use Twitter. I have an employee who does that for me, so that's a bad way to get in touch with me. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm a lion. I want every one of you people to go home and get on LinkedIn tonight. High school students, start on LinkedIn now. I'm telling you, I know how to be successful. Get on LinkedIn. What does a lion stand for, somebody? No one knows what lion is? Lion means I accept invitations from anybody. Anyone in the room who reaches out to me on LinkedIn, I will accept your invitation, and you will become my friend, and you will start to build your network. Remember, what is life about? How many people you know? If you come to me 5 years from now and say, I met you at North Springs High School at the Vibha event, will you help me? What am I going to say? Yes, I would love to meet with you and help you. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day. Do I have time for 1 or 2 questions?
Okay, you have.
All right, do we have 1 or 2 quick questions? We're really late on time. I'm running late already. I speak too long. Does anyone want to ask a question? No one? Thanks a lot. Okay, yes, Miss Ma'am. We met in the parking lot. How are you?
Thank you for remembering me. The question which I want to answer is, you said that relationship...
Can you keep your mic towards?
Relationship which you develop during your school year and your college year and outside the college matters to you a lot.
Yes.
So I want you to take 2 minutes to make these children in this room to understand that the relationship of your parents, your mother, your father, your uncle and auntie is not going to help you. You are the one who's going to create those.
100% I agree.
Because
yes.
that takes a different skill level.
Yes.
For children to develop by themselves and not your contact from your parents' contact list.
Yeah. Your parents' contact list, this is a great point. Your parents' contact list will help you. I borrowed $1 million. You know the Bank of North Georgia? You all know the Bank of North Georgia. You drive past it once a week, right? I borrowed $6 million from those people because my parents knows the guy who started that bank. But the reason he gave me the money was not because my parents got me in the room, but because when I got in the room, I did it myself because I had a good business. So we are 100% correct here. You need to do this yourself. You cannot rely on your parents. They will not do this for you. You have to build your network, your list of connections. It can be part of your parents' network, but you've got to do this yourself. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, Since we're high school students, how do you recommend we make those types of connections at our age? Because obviously, the parties that we would go to, there's not many, CEOs of small businesses.
That's just not true. I'm sorry. I hate to disagree with you publicly, but they're not CEOs of cool businesses now, but where are they going to be 10 years from now? Where are they going to be 20 years from now? The person who introduced me to the guy I needed at MIT, I met at a freshman party, right? It's even better when you meet them when you're both freshmen because you say, I've known you since you were stupid. I've known you since you were 15. That's how far back we go. I didn't meet you last week and I'm not hitting on you a week after I met you. I've known you for 12 years. And the adults in the room are going to say, that's cool. That's cool. You're here by yourself. I'm impressed with that. Let me introduce you around the room. I've seen it happen. I know it will happen. There are lots of opportunities. Go to everything you can. Your college will have 100 events a week. You should be at 14 of them.